excited today, you guys, because I am going to be sitting down with Battista, Locatelli. Hopefully I'm saying that right. And we are going to be diving deep into his story of transformation, and how he rose to the top, basically. And I'm so grateful to be chatting with him today. So this platform, I hope to be kind of doing more often. But I am kind of new at these Instagram lives. But I do have a podcast that I will be airing this on. I have my puppies in the living room. Hopefully they will behave while we do this. Oh yes, it looks like Joyful Carnivore. Oh, okay. Told you I'm new. This.
Hi. How are you?
I am great. How are you?
I'm doing so well. Hold on one second. Let me get
Okay, yes.
Oh my god. I'm so bad with time. I'm like the
Oh,
worst.
no, it's okay. It's okay. I am always running around doing things and I feel like I'm just always rushing and rushing.
Me too. Yeah. We need to calm it down a little bit, huh?
Yes, but you know what? We love what we do, right?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, let me
Yeah.
get a little situated, get comfortable so we can do a little talky poo.
Yes. And you're my only second interview I've ever done
Aww.
on Instagram Live. I do most of my interviews like on Zoom, but
Yeah.
I thought, you know what? Let's mix it up a little bit.
I know. I think I've done so many lives now that it's like, I don't know. I've done the Zoom thing too. It's nice because you can go back in and sometimes you can edit and stuff like that. I guess this is a little bit more raw, huh?
Yes, it is. Well, I kind of like this format because, people can ask questions and you can kind of read them and that, it's a little more interactive. So I would like to do a little more, with some people if I can like this too.
Yeah, lives. Oh, hey, Lily.
Hi.
Lives are cool. They're like you said. I feel like they're more authentic too.
Yeah, more interactive.
Genuine. Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
I wanted to bring you on, Battista, because I got to tell you, when I saw your profile on Instagram, I saw this guy, I saw your reels. You were just so full of life and light, and you were just like a sparkly joy.
Aw, thank you. I try, considering, right, all the stuff that I've been through. I don't know, like ever since I was talking about this last night at a Narcotics Anonymous meeting about how I have faith in something greater than me, and I don't know exactly what that is. I don't go to a building in order to connect with it, but I do know that there's something out there that has always carried me through really dark times and also really amazing times. And so because of that, I have this like kind of this amazing kind of optimism. My dad used to say to me, Batista, like you need to be more of a realist. And I said, screw that. Like if I look through that lens, then everything's sour, But
I know, you know what? I've always been told that too. I've been through a lot too. And I've always been told by people, even like at jobs I've had, which is why I'm not at those jobs anymore. You are too energetic. You're too optimistic. You're too nice to everybody, right?
Yeah. I mean, God forbid, what? Like, isn't that crazy? Like, God forbid we're nice. Like, the world needs more of us.
But people do, and when I left certain jobs or positions, I was told, oh my gosh, we're going to miss you so much because you motivated me every day. You're this beam of light, and we need these people, everyone needs us, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so where do you want to start?
Well, let's dive into your story, Battista. I know you have like a multifaceted story of weight loss and recovery and, trauma. You've just been through so much, but here you are motivating people, you're helping others. So how did you get here?
How did I do it? So, okay, well, let's see. Ah, geez. Okay, so I'll do like the streamlined version of it. So I was born in Las Vegas. Both my dad was 15, my mom was 18. When they had me, it was 1977. Both of them didn't have parenting skills. They were just children themselves, and they were at the time addicted to different substances and whatnot. I basically grew up as an only child and kind of had to fend for myself. My little sister wasn't born until I was 16. And so during that time, their drug use kind of escalated and my food addiction was born into being. It was kind of my way of coping with neglect, the abandonment, and just not having the actual skill set to be able to cope with all those things. And so during that time, I was molested by multiple men for about 10 years. And so that was on and off. That also led to more food addiction. I would always present, I was talking to Lily about this because I think that we have this in common. We would present really well at school, and then at our home life was very contrary to what you saw at school. So school was like this representation of a go-getter, a fighter, like a leader, so to speak, as somebody that everyone kind of magnetically was drawn to. And then at home, it was like trying to put out fires, take temperatures of how the household was going to be for the evening. If there was people there, like domestic violence, the fighting, the arguing, the windows being blown out, just the insanity, the physical abuse, the noses being broken, the verbal abuse, while they were under the influence, like you're a piece of this and da da da. And so it takes a toll, especially when you're developing like that, and then even further into like when you are in those developmental years of adolescence, as far as like your teen years. So it was a challenge, to say the least, but there was something I think that once again I think that like Lily and I have in common, and probably tons of other people, in regards to how many people have responded to me. I mean, I got blown up after I went on Carnivore Cast, and
Yeah.
the
Well,
amount of love.
I think a lot of people can relate to you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
on some level, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so that kind of took me into a kind of dark place, where food became my new like safety blanket, my new security. And it wasn't the good foods, right? It was all the
Yeah.
bad foods. And the worse the food got, the better it was, like
Yeah.
I needed to know whatever Taco Bell was slinging that week. I needed that new, whatever, queso, keto, crude or crunch, whatever, supreme, da, da, da.
Well, that's how they designed it, right? The worse it
Yeah.
is, the better it tastes.
A taste. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, my body, it was wreaking havoc on my body. I didn't, as a youth, I was gaining so much weight, and I didn't notice it because I didn't really care, because it was the only outlet that I had in order to cope with the things I was coping with. So at that time, when you're young, it's really funny. I say this to a lot of clients, but they don't care, right? When you're young, you could care less. Like you bounce back the next day, and most people can absorb that kind of crap, and it doesn't affect them like it does when you get older and whatnot. But so anyways, food addiction continued to spiral out of control. I was being shipped to aunts back east because they were going into treatment centers. They couldn't take care of me because they were going to rehab. It was just a lot of intense, all the time, like at number 10 as far as like intensity, chaos, confusion. It was just always up there. And that's where I lived. That's where I thrived. And that's where I knew how to navigate. I didn't know anything other than that. I would be very embarrassed if people at school knew what the home life looked like. So I kind of took a lot of extra energy and time to make sure that I kept that private. Only extremely close people, and I had like hundreds of friends at school, but maybe like three people of my inner circle like knew what that looked like. You know what I
Did
mean?
you have like so you had some close friends. Did you have like somebody that you can trust to kind of go to when you were having a hard time?
Well, I had those friends, but they had no conception of what to do or what to say. Do you know what
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean? Because the level of the information was so intense. I think
They,
it
yeah.
baffled me and it
They,
baffled
they
them.
weren't
And
trained in that, right?
no, no, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you kind of keep a lot of that to yourself. And what do you do with those emotions and feelings? You end up, you know, doing something to stuff the pain, you know? So, anyways, that kind of led into a graduation of high school. And I remember graduating high school, I went to go get measured for my cap and gown. And uh, everyone before me had already gotten their measurements and whatnot documented. We were doing the rehearsal walkthrough. And the lady goes, "Come here to the side." And I said, "What's going on?" She's like, "We have to special order your cap and gown because your head's too big." And I didn't know your head could get fat. And your,
Yeah. I
and
didn't know that
your,
either.
yeah, yeah. And my size was like a 4X, and they're like, "Yeah, we got to," and I was like, "Oh my God." So I was kind of embarrassed. It didn't dawn. That was a crucial moment. I remember it being like, "Oh shoot, this is an issue." And so, um, but then it just kept going on. That senior year too was the first time that I tried marijuana. 3 months later, I tried methamphetamines. I remember methamphetamines being a game changer because I was not hungry. I had all this energy. I was losing weight. I felt like the best I've ever felt. You know, I mean, you're firing on every single fire that you have available. You know, it's like bing, 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 and it just was insane. It wasn't insanity at all in the beginning. In fact, it was quite fun, and I'm not trying to romanticize it, but it was back when I could do it and I could still go to school and I could still, but I mean, it starts to become a thing where I'm already dependent on food, right? So I have this type of behavior where when something happens, I go do something to take care of that feeling. Instead of feeling the feeling, I
Yeah.
go try to avoid, isolate, feed, whatever that feeling. And now I'm incorporating not weed I could care less with. I mean, weed made me actually eat more.
Yeah.
But meth was like, not just that wasn't like, you know, I mean, over these days, the pharmacies are slinging it out in Adderall, and
Yeah.
they're calling, "Oh, you have ADHD. Let's get some crystal or methamphetamine salts." And so then some people that aren't even diagnosed correctly are becoming addicted to it, and later on have methamphetamine issues because early on the diagnosis was not proper. But anyways, that's a whole different mental health thing. But
Yes.
it frustrates me because now that I'm becoming a therapist myself, there's a lot of misdiagnosis out there, and people don't get a second, a third, a fourth opinion before they actually start consuming medications. Anyways,
Yeah.
okay, so that was an issue, right? And then, I mean, you would think that it would have been a red flag. You would think it would have been kind of a, hey, like you got a problem when I'm graduating high school. Now I'm going to the nightclubs. Now we're doing ecstasy and acid together and mushrooms and meth and now I'm like not going to work, and now I'm getting evicted out of my apartment, and now they're putting the lock on there, and now I'm breaking into my apartment to get some underwear, and they call the cops. Now I'm getting arrested, and I'm still doing
Wow.
meth. And so I got arrested 3 times in 1 week. Very first time ever being arrested, and I remember the cops were like, "You're here again." Like the booking agents were like, "What are you doing back?" And I'm like, "So this time it's totally something different." The first time was for breaking into my apartment. The second time was for fighting my stepdad for taking a hot pot of pasta with sauce on it and throwing it at my mom's face in this
Oh my
domestic
gosh.
violence dispute. And then I got him on the ground and I started burning his skin with a lighter because I was defending my mom. And then the cops got called and we both went to jail because we were both involved. That was the second time. The third time was I went back to my apartment. There were locks on all the apartment. They had my stuff in there. And I ended up going to Dillard's and getting underwear because I was sleeping outside and I'd never been homeless. And I was shoplifting, so I got caught shoplifting. And so anyways, it just was this whole, I remember the third time I got out of jail that day, I was walking down Las Vegas Boulevard, the strip, and the sun was setting, and I was like, is this really I was 18 years old. I was like, is this what life has become? Like, how did it go from, and I could, now looking back, I can understand as to like how all of that stuff kind of led up to, this moment in time. So was that a red flag? No.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you is, before you were led to do each thing, was there a moment where you're like, oh, this is really shitty, but I got to do it? What was your thought process during this kind of survival mode?
Yeah, so, growing up alone as an only child and also in a home of dysfunction, I always yearned for a sense of community, a sense of belonging, to have a tribe. And I never had that. I would create it in, say, choir. I would create it in theater. And now, being young and you're in Las Vegas, you work hard every night and then you party hard every night. And that's what they do. And then they sleep and they do it again. And you go and you bust your butt on table, like you become a waiter, you're making $400 to $600, $800 a night in tips. And then you go out that night and you live it up like you're rich. And you make enough money every night that you can pay for your rent and your car payment and all your bills and still have all this excess. And so, Dr. Dre's coming in town. We got to go see him. He's at the Bellagio, or, so-and-so. We're going to get bottle service, and this waiter knows this person, and we're getting free tickets. And then there's an after party, and it turns into everyone's taking ecstasy. And so it was very exciting. I mean, I met a lot of crazy people. I remember I was in a bathroom one time with Dennis Rodman doing cocaine with Carmen Electra. I mean,
oh my
yeah,
gosh.
I mean, there was, yeah, so it was,
Crazy.
it was, yeah, it was definitely exciting, and like you're young and it's fun, and it's just what people do there, but, so I don't know, for me, I took all of those experiences and came home and continued the addiction. And I had secret addictions where I was doing, meth by myself. And then I found the tribe of people that were doing meth. And eventually this led me to getting incarcerated for 2 years. And so basically I was addicted to crack cocaine. There wasn't a filter in regards to this isn't a good idea, because the pain body that I carried was so intense from childhood that there wasn't anything that was out there in the drug world that was going to fix the pain, the amount of pain that I had. Like, I needed help. I needed therapy. I needed psychiatric medication balancing. I needed assistance, and I needed long term. At this time, nobody ever brought it up to my attention. Hey, this is what you should do. This is where you should go. And so the snowball kept going and going and going. In fact, everyone kind of wanted to wash their hands of me. And the best way that they saw possible was to drop me off at Salvation Army and say, have a nice life. Well, I get why they did that, and I understand what the intention was behind that, and maybe there was like some trying to like cut being codependent, but at the same time, I had no direction, and so I was just going back to what I've always done, because that quote unquote kind of worked for me, that kind of like at least kept the demons, the voices at bay.
So you were you were surviving, you were going through the motions, but you weren't thriving, you weren't.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. No, in fact, I was like slowly but surely dying every day. And
Yeah.
that was like, that's hard to acknowledge looking back, but I once again I would present really well. People would have no clue that I was in that much pain and in that much anguish. I mean, there are so many fucked up scenarios, excuse my language, but there's so many messed up situations that are built into a kid that's molested. Like you then start to equalize sex as love. So anytime you have sex, you're like so now you need to have sex in order to have love, because that means that being touched physically means, and sexually being touched means that you're in love, but that's not even, they don't even match up. Love is so
Yeah.
different. Sex is an event that can be part of a loving, like, relationship, but it has nothing, the two are completely separate. And
Yeah.
so that's one like kind of messed up construct. And then you're seeking validation from others because, whether I've gained weight, lost weight on meth, I'm always like, so am I good enough now? I lost this much weight. Do you like me now? Am I enough? Because, this construct from childhood. And then it sends into even further into like, just always taking the temperature, like, people pleasing and codependent and enmeshed. And so a lot of the relationship situations that I got myself into were because I had this kind of broken construct that came from childhood. And for us, it's just I'm not the only person at all in the world. In fact, there's a lot of people that are quite successful that have very similar backgrounds as I do. Um, I think that getting through it is very challenging. I got hooked on crack cocaine. I Crack cocaine was a MFer. It was so bad. Okay, and that was really really hard. It got me to the lowest pits. I was homeless, living on the streets of Fremont Street, at the 50-yard line at the Las Vegas High School. I was living on cardboard boxes with all these homeless people, and we were drinking wine at the end of the night, like cheap $2 big bottles of wine to come down off the crack. I was shaving in the El Cortez Casino and washing my armpits. Like, it was insanity, the level that drug addiction can take you, substance use addiction can take you, because when you are locked in it, you need it to survive. It is, if you don't have it, you don't survive. So anyways, I'll kind of progress through this because I want to get to the food aspect of it. But went to prison for 2 years because of crack. That's a long story, but anyway, so did 2 years in prison, got out of prison, stayed clean for about a year, wasn't doing any work on myself, just basically was abstinent. Then got off parole. Everyone in my grandfather's restaurant, I was working at my grandpa's restaurant, we got a party, you just got off parole. Because of course, what do? You celebrate when you get off parole. Like,
Yeah.
it's like Jaeger bombs, yay, freedom. And like, yeah, and we were hotboxing, and just, it was insane. So then, of course, boom, addiction, the dragons awakened again. And then all of a sudden, I'm back in full-fledged addiction. And then that progresses. I go do 2 stints in rehab. The first time I did it for myself. I lasted about 2 years, got into an ATV accident where I went through the windshield. Bones came through my wrist, about 3.5 inches. They put titanium steel in here. Now I'm on pain meds. So I was about 2 years clean, but now I'm on pain pills, which technically isn't being clean. So now I'm under the influence of, if there's a protocol. If you have a surgery, when you're in recovery, you do about 2 weeks, and you work with a sponsor or a mentor, and they hold your pills, and then they dispense them to you at the 2-week mark. You cut yourself off. I'm now into 1 year on pain management, and they're upping my dose. And I was on like 90 Loratabs, like 100, not a day, but 90 Loratabs was a 2-week prescription, 180 Oxycontin. I had Somas, I had Xanax, I had Valium. I mean, and I would take all of those together with a shot of vodka. I was feeling real good.
So
And
you're basically a walking pharmacy, right?
oh yeah, garbage disposal. You know,
Yeah.
anything and everything that would fix me, I was
Mhm.
ready for. And so this the second time I went through rehab, I went through to fix a relationship. I caught so just it was hard. My ex, I caught him cheating on me. He was getting his master's degree. He was doing his internship in New York City. Went out to New York, stayed there for 2 weeks with him on the very final run of his intern. It was really fun. I got to see Broadway musicals, so that trip was fun. But meanwhile, he's sitting down. We're having dinner with the guy that he's cheating on me with.
What?
Yeah,
What?
yeah. He
Oh my
introduced me
God.
to him, and we like basically were breaking bread together every night.
Bye.
So
That's what I
yeah.
would say. I would say bye.
So you know that fed this internal message that I'm not
Yeah.
enough
You're
again.
not enough.
So
Exactly. That's right in front of you.
oh,
You're not
I was
enough.
so
And
mad, and
that
so
would be
anyways,
abusive. Oh,
I went
no.
basically slowly back down to a slippery slope again. I was doing meth with him. He got me removed with, you know, because I was like, well, you know, F you. Like, if this is how you're going to treat me, wait till you see me on meth. You're going to really hate life. So I was like, that was not the best way of getting vengeance because I was just harming myself, right? And
Yeah.
it was very immature. So, anyways,
And you were hurt. You were deeply hurt. You
super
know,
hurt,
hurt
super hurt.
people.
Hurt people, right? And
Yeah.
so, yeah. And then the second time in rehab, I went back to fix the relationship. It wasn't to do anything other than to get back in the house that we owned and to get our relationship back and have the life that we had when we first started prior to meth. But, so I was doing it for all the wrong reasons, and that stint in recovery didn't last long. Plus I inherited a bunch of money right afterwards. And so, you know, fresh out of treatment with a bunch of money, and then a relationship dissolving, not the best idea.
Yeah.
Anyways, long story short, this third time worked because I had lost everything. I had nobody that would take my phone calls. My grandmother said, "Don't call me anymore." And I said, "Grandma, you don't want me to ever call you again?" She goes, "Nope, never." And I was like, "Really?" So, and then I called my ex, and I was trying to like still remain civil with him. He's like, "Don't call me." Finally, everyone had said enough, and I needed to hear that. And I hung up the phone. I went back to my jail cell, and it dawned on me, I have nothing, and yet I have everything.
Oh, wow. How did you come up with that?
I don't know. I mean, it's got to be God, right? There's something internal, spiritual, whatever you want to call it, your inner light. There was a spiritual awakening that happened at that moment where it
Yeah.
dawned on me that even though I have nothing, I have everything, and in
Yeah.
having nothing, I have everything. And that was like an aha moment, like a bing bing moment that I'll never forget because I realized that at that moment I had a ground zero. I had somewhere to start. I had a beginning. I had a
You had
beginning
nothing
to,
to lose, right?
yeah. Well,
But
yeah, I had,
everything to gain, I guess.
yeah, yeah. So, anyways, I ended up um, really taking that opportunity to be able to utilize building. I'm such a visual person. I'm a very like beautiful imageries. I see things in like high definition, like as far as my visualizations and stuff. Super photographic memory. So sometimes that can be a bad thing. But anyways, as far as this whole new life, I really looked at it as though like that image behind your head right now. I looked at it
Well,
like
that's what I was
like
thinking. This is how I see the world too. Color.
yeah, color, but also like I was like, okay, I'm at ground zero with this new life, and
Hmm.
each brick that I put down can be strategically placed where I want it and how I need it, and I can rebuild me from the ground up. I'm gonna have to do it very thoughtfully, and I'm gonna have to put a lot of like thought into it as far as like what do I want out of this experience? How do I want to heal? How do I want to grow? So on and so forth. And so,
Okay.
It's been an amazing experience. I was in treatment for about 90 days. I did intensive outpatient after that for another 9 months. I graduated drug court. The day that I graduated drug court, about a week prior, I had an interview with a gentleman who owns sober living houses in southern Utah. He interviewed me. The next day he called me. He hired me for Cedar City. He's in a town 45 minutes away where he had 4 of them. So I went down there for training. I started my first sober living house in Cedar. I now am the operations manager over 8 of them. So I have 176 to 210 clients that I communicate with monthly. Yeah, as far as housing.
That is a lot. That is a lot.
Yeah, and then I'm also getting my master's degree right now to become a licensed clinical social worker. I also work 40 to 50 hours a week as an intern therapist at the actual recovery place, the rehab that I went through. I'm actually working right now. Yeah, isn't that cool?
Wow, talk about a full circle.
Yeah.
Full circle.
Yeah.
Yes. So, well, now, how did you get? Maybe I missed it. How did you get from Las Vegas to Utah?
Yeah. So let's see. I'm trying to think how to segue. So basically, yeah, I had already been released out of prison, but I had gone back to crack cocaine, and at that time I actually got baptized, LDS, which I wasn't doing it for the right reasons. My mom was baptized, but she was getting rental assistance through the church, so we were basically doing it for a handout. And so, but at the time, the church was really, really nice. I just don't, I mean, to each their own. It's just not a faith that I follow.
Yeah.
But anyways, so long story short, my dad and my grandfather had sold their Italian restaurant. They have the oldest Italian restaurant in Las Vegas, started in like 1970. It's called Battista's Hole in the Wall. It's still there. It's like a Vegas icon. Yeah. But they sold and they moved out to southern Utah. And so I followed, because I was so bad on crack at the time. I asked my dad if he could basically get me help. And so I transferred out my probation out there and everything. And that's when the beginning, 2009, is when I started my recovery journey. It just didn't stick until 2016.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you had your dad and your grandma. They were still talking to you.
Yeah, this last time it definitely was a building process. It took a lot of time, a lot of trust. I had to really prove myself,
Yeah.
And
makes sense.
I wanted to. A lot of people don't want to, or they get stuck in the shame and the guilt of, well, screw them. If they don't want to love me, then screw them. Or they want to give me hard love, well, then screw that. Sometimes that's a motivator, and it was a motivator for me. Other people sometimes go further into the addiction because of that, but that's not the person's fault. That is setting a healthy boundary that I'm not okay with this type of behavior, and I'm willing to do X, Y, and Z. I can help you get into recovery or into a rehab or get you some mental health. But they have to keep themselves safe too,
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, at some point too, you have to hit like a rock bottom.
Yeah.
If you don't see that for yourself, other people around you have to create that rock bottom,
Yeah, and unfortunately, sometimes, unfortunately, it's death.
Yes, I know. I have actually personally lost a lot of people to drugs, to alcohol, and I myself am a recovering alcoholic, Wow. And for me, I had my own little rock bottom, but it's not as big as somebody else's, but it was mine,
Yeah. Wow. It's, to however, whatever it is, whatever it takes is what's important, for each and every individual. You have to kind of gauge what that looks like. For me, it was never enough. No matter what you gave me or what you put in front of me, it was never going to fix coping with the pain that I was carrying. It wasn't until I started coping with that pain and going and sitting in 3 different sessions, 3 different rehab stints, that I was able to start opening up the wound and cleaning it out. There was so much I needed to discuss about my self-worth, how I identified myself, being gay, what that looked like, being molested by men and being gay. Was there an association there? Did I get gypped because now, I'm going to have more of a challenging time to have family? How am I going to find a family? Do I have to get a surrogate? Like all this, stuff that was, and then was being abused, something that I enjoyed towards the end because it was so common, that I became used to it. There's just so many different layers that therapy, and that's why I'm going into therapy, is the immense amount of healing that I've gotten from it. There's a thing called Emdr, and I was able to work this out with my therapist. And when we were doing a session you go into a traumatic event, and he sent in, so I'm in the traumatic event, it's the 10-year-old me, and he sent me in as my current age, going in, and he sent me to go hug my 10-year-old. And when I sat down to hug the 10-year-old kid, it was like, whoa, mind-blowing. It was mind-blowing that I didn't know that I had it within me this entire time to go in and to love and to cherish the kid that was abused and neglected. It's like I didn't have to spend any money on it. Like it was all within myself. I just needed to send that kid love and to hold him and let him know that he's safe and secure. That was a mind blown experience.
I have heard that. I've talked to a few people about that therapy. I forget what it stands for.
It's eye movement electrical sensory.
I know it has something to do with electrical, but
yeah. So it's basically you close your eyes and your eyes go back, forth, left and right, and then you put your hands on the counter, and the therapist just taps back and forth as your eyes are going back and forth. What happens is the neurons, or the neural pathways, when you have a traumatic event, a memory, and an event, they intertwine. And what it does is it ends up letting them untwine, and so that you have them separate. So every single time that I see a movie about molestation, I don't get re-traumatized. I don't go back to that moment now. Okay. Yeah, I just see it for what it's worth. It's very helpful. Yeah, it's super cool. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, okay, let's get into how did your relationship with food change? When did that start playing into it?
So I started early on doing the Atkins, and I did the old Atkins, and it worked, cutting out the sugars and the carbs and the starches. I read the book, the old one, then I read New Revolution, he put out a new book. And I remember that being, these days, these cats got it all easy. If you're on Atkins, they make meals that you can buy in the store. They're not the healthiest, but they are. It's like if you want to be low carb and you want to do the Atkins way in South Beach, it's like before it was just a book. Now it's like they have all the products and stuff that, like I said, aren't super healthy because they got a lot of.
Well, of course, they're going to put crap in whatever's popular, right?
Yeah.
Basically.
And so that's where it started. And then, I was introduced, and this was kind of traumatic when I was a kid, but I was introduced to Jenny Craig when I was how old was I? 10 years old. So my grandmother was like, you have a weight issue. And so she takes me to Jenny Craig. I'm sitting in Jenny Craig with a bunch of 30, 40, 50-year-old women. And I'm the only guy in there. And I'm 10, I'm a kid. So that doesn't feed.
And were you, at that time, were you overweight? Did you think? Or?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I was, if you saw pictures, I was a thick.
So you were kind of into your food addiction at that point, though.
Oh yeah, early on.
Really heavily into that. Okay.
Yeah, because I mean, I didn't have drugs back then. If I probably had drugs at then, I probably would have done it.
Actually, that was your drug. The sugar, the carbs, those were your drugs.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because I had to cope with the sex abuse. And so.
Yeah. No, I
And
mean,
then,
and then you were watching your parents, right?
mhm.
You were watching
Yeah,
how they were operating, so you were learning from them.
yeah.
And but that was the only drug you had access to, right?
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, then I went from Atkins to, let's see, when I was in prison, I did calorie restriction, and I did low carb calorie restriction. So I lost a ton of weight. I was running 2 miles a day. It was kind of borderline eating disorder, right?
Yeah.
And then that then led me into getting out of treatment this last time, and then I did keto, got on keto, and I lost 100 pounds, and then I got into the carnivore space, and now I've been
Yeah.
on carnivore for a while now, almost a year, and I'm kind of I've been reintroducing. So I'm not sure. It's just there's that stupid dogma about my handle. So it says joyful carnivore.
You
So do I
know,
like?
I think it depends on how, you view things. But
Yeah,
for me personally, and why are you doing it? Why are you eating meat based? It's to heal, right?
yeah,
So we're not, most of us aren't going to live this way forever, or we don't need to, but we
yeah,
can, we have a foundation of meat, right? And
yeah,
then we can add a few things here and there. That's kind of how I look at it. But you're
yeah.
still carnivore if you eat mostly meat.
I know, I
You
know, I
know?
know. And I could, to be honest with you, I really, at the end of the day, I could care less about those labels. They really don't
Yeah.
matter to me. What matters is my truth, right? I'm doing my best at, I've been able to, there was a phase in carnivore that I was gaining, and
Yeah.
there was
Me too.
lot of tweaking, a lot of tweaking that I had to do. It was really strange. The moment that I started incorporating cauliflower rice or or salad here and there, and some fruits, I'm not gonna lie, that my weight started coming off. It was really
Oh,
weird.
really?
Yeah,
Oh.
and so, but when I was doing all meat 24/7 for like a good like probably 8 months, um, I was healing by far.
Hmm.
I felt the most optimal I ever felt, but I went up 17 pounds from my lowest weight on keto. So I was like, this is really weird, okay? Because I'm having eggs and bacon for breakfast. I'm having a ribeye for dinner. I'm having the chocolate egg pudding for dessert. And I'm like, like I'm eating all carnivore, all animal based. But slowly it was creeping up like 3 pounds like every couple weeks. And I was like at
Well,
17
and
pounds
I
up, I'm
know
like,
that for some
man.
people, and I think this was probably the case with me, we've been kind of restricting for so long. We have been kind of not getting all the nutrients we need for so long that it's almost like we have to kind of gain a little bit of weight and then eventually it should fall off, right?
Yeah,
And that's kind of what has happened to a few people, but I noticed, yeah, with myself, even after a year, it wasn't happening. So that's
yeah.
when I started, changing it up a little bit too.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, and I think to each their own, right? Like, so it's gonna be like I know Steak and Butter Gal just put out a video with her boyfriend, and
Yeah.
he talks about how it wasn't for him, like carnivore wasn't for him. He was trying to do it and whatnot. I'm not gonna lie, like it's changed my boyfriend's life. He lost like 50 pounds, but we can tolerate stuff. We're not lactose intolerant. We don't have Hashimoto's. We don't have Crohn's disease. We don't have all these ailments. I do know, like I said, without a shadow of a doubt, even though I was up 17 pounds on the scale, I felt the most optimal I've ever felt. Like for me, I didn't have the sluggish feelings that Steak and Butter guy had. I felt really like mood balanced. My mood was so balanced on just me and animal fat. So mental health was like all amazing. I felt really zen. My skin was amazing. I noticed I incorporated some chicken recently and I get zits. Isn't that
Oh,
weird?
really?
There's probably something in the
Oh,
chicken,
there's
maybe.
probably something. I wonder if it has anything to do with like brains or anything that the chicken may have
Maybe.
eaten.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I've heard of people reacting to that, or
Yeah.
it could be anything in the processing. You know.
Yeah. So I need to, there's local farms. I'm just starting that journey. Like, we normally go to Costco to get like gigantic New York steaks. We were doing ribeyes, even though it costs a lot of money. It's more intelligent to get the big loaf of ribeye and then you cut it up into slices. But
Oh, and I've seen that. I was thinking, wow, that is intense. I don't know if I
yeah.
can do that.
Well, then you cut it up and you freeze it, and then every a day you just pull out a steak. Well, it was like $7 cheaper per steak.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was a lot.
Okay,
It
so
adds up.
it's more cost effective.
Oh yeah, big time. Yeah,
And I wish I had a Costco where I live, but I don't.
yeah. Mine's 45 minutes away. So,
Oh
um,
yeah.
but the other thing too is because I'm in southern Utah, we have a lot of farmers around here. So there is a farm not too far from me that cuts off all the fat from the ribeye, and I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, the fat's amazing." I had
Yeah.
to, like an addict, I was overdoing it. I was fat,
Yeah,
fat, 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 fat.
see, if you have that addict mentality, you can pretty much get addicted to anything.
Yeah,
And I was doing that too for a little bit too.
yeah, and that probably contributed to my weight gain because I mean, I think that for me, there was a lever of fat that was satiating and it was enough. But, when I was overdoing it, I think my body's like, oh, there's so much fat coming in. We're not burning off enough, so we're going to store this. Just like it would with a
Yeah.
carbohydrate.
And are you familiar with Dr. Ted Naiman?
Yeah,
And he kind of talks about the protein energy, the ratios.
yeah,
And, and it makes a lot of sense because, fat is an energy source
yeah,
and carbohydrates can be an energy source.
uh-huh.
So, sometimes we need a little buffer.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, anyways, so like, yeah, it's been an interesting journey. Carnivore really did fix a lot of things. It's probably I mean, I did a lot of tweaking in Carnivore. I did, because of that 17 pounds, it really started freaking me out. Like I'm going to go up more and more and more. It was very, very, very gradual. It wasn't like I was putting on 5 pounds in one day or a week, but it was enough that it started like kind of making me concerned a little bit. And I was starting to do calorie restriction with Carnivore. Like I was all, what do I need to do like to drop this weight down? The really weird thing is that once I went up to the 17-pound weight gain, I went on protein sparing modified fast. I did that.
Oh.
I did.
Oh,
I
yeah, I
did.
was going to ask you if you ever did that.
Yeah, I did that. I did higher fat, low protein. I did high protein, low fat. I did every single tweak you can do in the animal-based world to try to drop some of that 17. I
Mhm.
increased my exercise, like everything. Nothing would get it off. And so I started eating a couple salads and some cauliflower, and boom, it just falls off.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. And I think you know what? You just have to find what works for you. If
Yeah,
having a salad once in a while is okay with you and you can digest it,
yeah,
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
no,
Um,
no,
but and it all kind of comes back to like your why. Like, why are you doing it?
yeah,
It
yeah,
shouldn't. It shouldn't be just to have some kind of a label. Like,
yeah.
oh, I'm carnivore,
Yeah, who
but
cares? Yeah, because it's my body and it's my like, this is my sanctuary. I get to do what I want with it. And so, I mean, I learned that out the hard way with other stuff. So, but I also want
yeah.
I also want to promote the fact that Carnivore did help me. Over the course of 6 months. I got off all my mental health medications. Um, I mean, telling you what, the elasticity in my skin had never felt so soft, like the side of my belly was so soft and so supple. I was like, ooh, I've never felt this before. All my eczema went away, my dry heels went away. Acne clears up. It was insane, the healing that comes from it. So I probably will do a little bit of this for the rest of my journey. I probably
Yeah,
will have moments where I will go back to strict carnivore because I really like the way that I feel. I felt so good. I mean, on so many
it
levels. My
it
testosterone went up.
really is really healing. I look at it as a healing diet, and then you can kind of reset things, right?
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
if you want to add a few things back in here and see how they work,
yeah, yeah. And
basically.
sometimes, when you're adding stuff in, you got to reset that again because it gets out of control.
Yeah,
Because you're like,
yeah.
now I'm
Uh,
back to doing this, that, and the other. Now I'm
well, yeah,
into
you
like
have to
fat
look at
bombs
if
and
you have is something triggering. Because actually, I talked to Judy the other day, nutrition with Judy,
oh
and
yeah,
we talked about this too. Is you have to look at it. Is it a trigger food for you? Is it going to make you go back to
yeah,
where you were before?
yeah.
You know.
Did she talk about reintroduction?
We talked a little bit. Yeah, we talked a little bit about that. If you are going to eat some vegetables, it's better it's better to eat the low toxic load ones.
Yes. Yeah, 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 yeah.
And
And
you
there's
can have if you can tolerate fruit once in a while and it doesn't trigger you. You
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah. And it doesn't yeah, like you said, low carb with Cara, I think says I am keto and sometimes I lean out with things like cabbage and salads. Yeah, of course, right? Because it's like very minimal calorie. But then carnivore meals have made me feeling the best. It's weird. It's super weird, yeah, because when I'm eating like ribeyes and New Yorks and bacon and I'm cooking eggs and bacon fat and I feel top notch. My
Mhm.
testosterone went from 462 to 917.
Wow, wow.
I was like a
That
15-year-old boy in puberty. I was like, good morning.
and that's one of the biggest epidemics right now.
Yeah.
Is low testosterone, not just for men, but for men and women use it too. So
Yeah.
we need
So
it too.
yeah, so the carnivore, like, I mean, and you feel satiated.
Yeah,
You really do feel like a good like gigantic hamburger, even with no veggie, and like a little. I like G Hughes, the sugar-free barbecue sauce, and like some good like raw cheese or something. I'm in heaven. But of course, I want my Greek
yeah,
yogurt and blueberries, okay, for dessert. I have to have some type of, even I use the prime or the equipped prime protein, and I used to put it in and raw Greek yogurt. So it has all the enzymes in it. But I put the protein
yeah.
powder in there and had like a little chocolate pudding. I don't know. I'm so
That sounds good.
fixated
I'll
on,
have to try that.
yeah, yeah.
I have the vanilla. I'll have to order some of the chocolate.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, put the vanilla in like any of those Greek yogurts, the Fage Greek yogurt. You can use full fat or the 0%, but just one of those cups and you put a full scoop in there and mix it up. I put a little stevia myself. It's delicious.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it sounds like a good treat. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I think it's cool. Like our community is amazing. We have found something that really heals inflammation, which is the leading cause of 99.9% of all diseases, right? So we're on the right track. Whether we ebb and flow between keto, carnivore, ketovore, whatever, I think that it's really intelligent for us just to love one another. Like, who cares what's in your label? Like I have actually thought about changing my handle to simply Batista or just Batista, but
Oh,
I love
yeah.
Joyful Carnivore because it kind of does illuminate who I am.
Yeah. Well, and look at like Carnivore Yogi, and she has reintroduced some foods too.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and she's not going to change her name because I think it's like the base of what healed you, right?
Yep, yep,
Um, and you're still eating mostly meat based,
yeah.
and she does too, and she goes back and forth too, and she
Yeah,
reintroduces things.
she was talking about gaining weight, you
Well,
know?
and you have to look at it's not just the food.
Yeah.
It's also, what I've been doing lately is I've been really trying to find ways to open up my detoxification pathways
Uh-huh.
because I know that's something I've always struggled with is detoxing.
Yeah.
Um, and so I've been doing the sauna. I've been going. I live up the road from a hot springs.
Oh,
I've been
wow.
Yeah, I'm lucky to live where I do in this little mountain town.
That's cute. I love mountain towns.
And
I'm in a
in
mountain town too.
Colorado.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, I've been doing these things that are not related to food. You know, I go on walks. I mean, I've always done that, but and I have been doing, you know, like I try to get up with the sun and go outside and look at the sun and the
Yes.
light. I stopped wearing sunglasses and sunblock and you know all
Yeah.
these little tweaks that we can do too that help move the needle.
Yeah, and it kind of resets your circadian rhythm. Yeah, totally. Yeah. So what about your weight loss journey? How has that been?
Well, and for me, it wasn't really about weight loss.
Okay, healing.
For
No.
me, yeah, because well, I did in the beginning. It was more I went almost like keto, like a whole food keto. In
Yeah.
the beginning, and this was about like almost 7 years ago now.
Wow, it's crazy, huh?
But my journey's been long, but I came to carnivore basically. I had been doing all these plants and stuff, and I ended up eliminating one by one. I keep eliminating plants, you know.
Yeah.
I was eliminating, you know, nightshades and then nuts, and I was down to basically lettuce and meat.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And I had really bad SIBO, Candida
yeah.
issues and horrible like gut dysbiosis. Like I could eat something and my stomach would blow up like I was pregnant.
Yeah.
And it was very uncomfortable and
What is
it
that
is
caused from?
well, you know, I still really don't exactly know. It's basically a intestinal overgrowth,
Okay.
and it basically can happen like if you don't digest your foods very fast. Like I'm really slow.
Yeah.
That's why I have issues like detoxifying, um, and you know, I always had these issues with bloating and constipation, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, I went to Carnivore for healing is why I went because I was like at my wit's end,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for real.
you
I know.
know, and that was in 2019, for me anyway. And then, like I said, I was carnivore for like a year, and then I started reintroducing a few foods here and there, and it was hard at first for me.
Yeah.
So it was a different journey for me, you know. And I am just now trying to incorporate all the things that don't involve, you know, diet type stuff,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's fun. Yeah, because then it takes the focus off the food.
Yeah, because I mean, I did gain about 15 pounds with when
Uh-huh.
I, you know, over the course of like a year, I'd say.
Yeah. Which
You
isn't
know,
horrible, but it's
no.
noticeable, like you start to like I couldn't fit into my skinny jeans. I was like I
Well,
was
and I
so
think that we don't realize that maybe we did need to gain that for a little bit.
yeah.
And that's what
Yeah.
I mean, I've lost some of it. I've lost probably about, I don't know, 5 or 10 pounds, you know, but it's
Yeah.
been very slow,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And I can't really say it's like one thing or the other. I just think it's like doing all these self-care things,
Hmm.
trying to just relax, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
meditate.
Take it
Uh,
easy.
yeah, I think we just focus so much on the weight,
Yeah,
you
of
know.
course. Yeah. Did you notice your mood improve when you were doing strictly carnivore?
Well, that's the first thing I noticed is like my brain, I was happy,
Yeah.
especially when I would eat fish, like salmon.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
yeah.
noticed
Like
I
you're
was,
firing.
woo.
Yeah.
Yeah, my brain
Another thing
water,
that
and that's why I always kind of go back to carnivore like during the week usually. But I do add a few things in, like I have asparagus once in a while, or
yeah.
I have pickled onions, or you know, something
Yeah.
like that in
Yeah.
there.
I
Um,
noticed when I was on beef suet. Carnivore Yogi turned me on to it. Like I got the frozen beef suet, and then I would let it defrost for a couple minutes out and eat little nuggets of it. And throughout the day, it was like I was on some type of like mood stabilizer. It was like,
yeah, I actually, yeah, I did that too for a while because of her.
yeah, yeah. Did you notice that?
Yeah, well, that's why I noticed like my brain, it was just operating. I was happy.
Yeah,
I was like having all these ideas, you
yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So there's
creativity.
something to the fat. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
our brains need the fat, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's mainly fat, your brain is.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, this has been so fun. Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm sorry. We're out of time, aren't we?
Yeah, you're
But
okay.
yeah,
I had such a good time.
this has been such a good time, Batista. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah,
Now, where
thank
can
you.
people connect with you and
So
find you?
you can find me at at Joyful Carnivore. If you want to include my handle down below, that's cool. At
Yes.
Joyful Carnivore. You can also find me, and I don't know if you know this, but you can find me Battista underscore Locatelli. So you can, that's my other like
Oh,
personal page. And
yeah.
then I'm also on Facebook, Battista Locatelli. So
Oh,
yeah,
okay. Well,
this is mainly
I
my.
will put all that information in there. And then what is next for you? What are your goals and dreams?
My goals and dreams are definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, to help people recover from that hopeless state of mind and body when it comes to drugs and alcohol. Um, I am a huge advocate of the 12-step program. So, I work steps in the Narcotics Anonymous program. I'm a sponsor. But therapeutically, I want to give what was so freely given to me. I learned a lot from therapists that have walked in my shoes, therapists that were once addicts. So I was more open to learn from them because I'm like, you understand what it's like to be homeless and to have to survive with drugs and alcohol. So that's my goal. I think it would be really cool. I'm actually talking to a gentleman on here that has gone through the exact same. He's got like 162 like thousand followers, and he wrote a book on trauma and whatnot. And but he wants to correlate the whole food pattern with it. And so
Oh,
we've been in discussion about actually doing a book together. So it would be kind of cool one day to turn my platform, especially here on Instagram, into a mental health, like to be able to set up interviews with people and to be able to talk with them or have appointments where I can do telehealth, maybe help them walk through different journeys of theirs. So that's kind of my dream, is once I become licensed to be able to open up that platform here, because I've had a lot but ever since I did Carnivore Cast, people are like, can you be my therapist, can you be my therapist, I love you, oh my
yeah.
god. And then
Well,
nobody,
mental
like,
health is a big
yeah,
thing.
so I'll get there.
No, you're already doing so much just by being you,
Oh,
Batista.
thank
And
you.
I'm I'm so thankful that you came on today to talk about your journey.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, of course.
Bye, Chrissy, thank
I will
you.
see you later, Batista. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
thank you, see you later, have a
Okay,
good day.
bye. You
Bye.
too.